That's the meaning of our life, right? Like,
Wow. Dude, we're going deep, man. Solar Pros, welcome to The Pursuit. I'm your host, Josh Holland. Today, we have the man, the myth, the legend, our president of sales, Tyler Jackson, on the show. What's up, dude? Thanks for coming on, man.
no, thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it. I'm humbled to be here, man. Your region, your group's crushing it.
Dude, thanks, dude. I appreciate that. For those of you guys that don't know Tyler, been in door-to-door since, what did we say, 2007?
2007.
So the OG is what we call him. I mean, just
Either I'm getting old or I've been in it for a while.
yeah, I think it's one of those. Yeah, it's one of those things where you keep looking. I've been in it for 11 years, and I keep looking back. I'm like, I've really. It's been that long, but I mean, dude, for you and Slider and those other guys, it's like 20 years.
We're coming up on 20 years.
Yeah,
now.
it's getting crazy, but yeah, super excited to have Tyler on. I just wanted, like, before we kind of dive in, give you guys a little backstory on him and why him being a president of sales of Freedom Solar Pros just makes so much sense, especially like when you consider like what our model is. So probably if we were to highlight the main thing, Tyler grew a network from nothing, very minimal accounts to over 6,000 installs. So that we're talking 12,000 sales a year in a span of 4 years. So that type of growth, and that's like before the engine of Solar Pros was even there. So like it's like what we were saying, like Freedom version 1.0, and now we're like in the 2.0, 3.0 stage. Just absolutely incredible, man. Like it's actually just so remarkable. But I want to talk through that. Like, tell me the journey. Let us know like what that entailed.
Yeah, man, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
I mean, I started with Freedom. I opened up their Houston market for them.
Okay.
So Freedom had never been in Houston. They'd never been in Texas at all.
Wow.
So
What year is this?
man, this is like 4.5 years ago. So 2019, August of 2019 is right about when it started.
Okay.
So they were in 4 states at the time. They just announced Illinois, and then they announced Texas that was going to be their next state that they were opening up.
Okay.
I think they were originally planning on maybe like El Paso to have some like the Arizona crews come out to El Paso, and then they shifted with our group coming over to Houston.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I'd been doing solar in Houston for a little bit, and that was always a journey. Like I'd been doing solar in Houston for about 3.5, 4 years. Started out with Solar City, opened up that market for them. For Solar City, and I remember, I mean, just like how Texas is one of the biggest markets now, right? Like Texas, we crush it there. I think it's their number 1 state, but I think it's Freedom's top state as well.
Yeah, it seems like it.
But when I started in solar in Texas, I remember we had, with Solar City, they had a map of all their installs, and I remember pulling up the map, and there was 1 pin, like there was no installs at all. And so, I mean, and I remember that 1 pin, I went to go try and knock by it. Like, what do we do to get sales? Go knock by it. And I remember it was 4 panels by a marquee by like a school. It wasn't even a real install on a home. And that was basically it. And so, I mean, for starting with Freedom, I'd opened up the market for Solar City, and then I was able to open up Texas a second time for Sunrun. So I worked at Legacy, previous to Sunder or previous to with Freedom. But Sunrun was entering into the Texas market, and they always used Legacy's kind of like the guinea pig to go figure out the market. And so I'd opened it up with Sunrun, and then the third time doing it was with Freedom. And it was,
charm.
yeah, and it was, I remember like the first sales that we made in Texas. I remember I had a customer that I went and I signed up. It was a referral of one of my old customers. I went and I signed him up, and I remember calling Chad Towner after it, being like, "Hey, what do I do? Like, I think they signed the documents. I signed them. What do I do? How do I get a survey out here?" and he was like, "Can you get like 4 or 5 more cells, and we'll see if we can fly somebody out from Arizona to come out and do those surveys." So
look at 'em, jeez.
yeah, so we didn't have a process to get surveys set up or anything like that, and so it started from very humble beginnings. But fortunately, I'd had experience with doing that a couple times, of setting up shop with a couple different installers out there.
So in that span, like obviously, I mean, there's so many headwinds, and like as we've opened up new markets, it seems like we're able to get things go. Like we have it pretty dialed. Like, hey, we're gonna open up Ohio, we're gonna open up Washington, and all of a sudden we're already cranking installs. Like, what were some of the outside from like ops stuff, but like getting your people to kind of believe and like want to grow? Like, where did that come from for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, guys, so first off, there's no installer out there, and there's no opportunity like what Freedom has.
Yeah.
And then the alignment and the opportunity with the pros and what Freedom has, like pay scales were obviously instantly better with Freedom. But I think more so than just like the pay scales, guys aren't gonna. They might initially follow you for a pay scale, but there's got to be more. They're not gonna stay for a pay scale, because somebody will come and offer them $10 more or whatever, But I mean, just honestly, the journey of that, of like going through and figuring out how to work through the market, figuring out how to do permits with some of those older, like whether it was with Sunrun or Solar City, like we built up a family relationship that guys were willing to go through the trenches with me, And so a lot of times it was like, hey, if Ty's leaving, I never wanted to go entice people to go to different places, but they were like, we're coming with, like we know one way or another that we're going to figure it out eventually, just because of some of that family relationship that we had. I mean, I think back to some of like the early guys that I worked with in those days, like Jeff Roman. He runs the Roman Legion here with us. He's still, 8-9 years later, he's still working with us, And so those are dogs that are, we figured out. I mean, we're like family, And so
You probably like through that difficulty, like if the leader is still able to kind of, I guess, have like be positive, like and be real and authentic, and just actually lead from the front, even through like those really hard times, people will follow, and it seems like they follow you more.
Yeah.
And then as things get good, they're grateful for the tip of the spear, like, and then
Absolutely.
then the bond forms, and I think that's maybe why you call them family.
Yeah, I mean, we always had the belief that if you're putting in the work, if you're not if you're staying positive, if you're just staying at it, it's eventually going to come. Just like anything, right, in life, that eventually, if you stay at it long enough and you're working hard enough and you're starting to see build on little tiny wins, even if they're small wins, just build upon them and not giving up, it's eventually gonna happen. And so for us, with Freedom, we finally had the installer that was willing to have our back, that was willing to give an offering of a cheaper baseline or a lower baseline. We had an installer that was willing to build around us. So like with Sunrun, they'd always tell us like, hey, we look at Texas as, it's not a model or a market that we're going to make a ton of money. It just has big systems, so it helps us get our panel prices down. And they'd skip over the incentives, would skip over Texas, and it was like the support was just never there in Texas at the time, because the price per kilowatt hour or whatever was cheaper in Texas. But on the opposite end, Freedom looked at it, and from day one, they're like, nobody's dominating this market. Nobody's really taken over in Houston. Nobody's taken over in Dallas. Vivint Solar wasn't there. There wasn't a lot of, bigger companies there. And so, I vibed with Brett right off the bat, because he's like, hey, we want to go make a name for ourselves in Houston. We want to have your back, whatever we need to do to kind of get this built up and growing. I mean, we're going to stub our toes a few times, but whatever we got to do to have your back and build Texas, we want to make a footprint here. We want to make a name for ourselves in Texas. And so slowly, if you have that support and the work ethic, it'll eventually come.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a valid point, because I mean, you could go in there and be the best leader in the entire world, and maybe not have the right vehicle, or like I think you said it best, like a common thing we say here is the alignment. Yep. the alignment. And when the person who gets to decide how things actually go, like Brett Bushey,
Yep.
is on your side. And then you pair it with a very skilled leader, a genuine leader, an authentic leader who's willing to do really whatever for their people. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, and it seems like those are the things that just add gas to the fire. But you can only do so much on your own. Like, you have to have other people involved, and it almost seems like, and you guys probably know this better than me, but it almost seems like because of that experience, there is maybe what led to Solar Pros kind of getting formed of like, hey, like, what if we had more alignment? Kind of like Brett was thinking of, what if we did that with maybe not just one org or whatever, but like our entire face was like that. Like, what could that look like? And I think maybe we're living it.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, the previous company that I was at, it felt like the company was divided. There was a group of people that were super negative on our installer. There was a group of people that were like, I mean, if you want to find the negative in anything, you can find it. Yeah, and if you want to focus on that and you want to, blame and complain and, hey, this is what's happening with my situation, it's these guys, you can find it, right? And so our group, I think one of the reasons why we did well is we chose every single day to try and find that alignment. We'd go and we'd work with the branch managers. We'd go and we'd work with the directors. We'd become, friends with them. As weird as this sounds, we'd go and tell them thank you, right? Like,
Yeah.
like it's a small thing, but just like a W-2 person, like just going into them and saying, hey, thank you, man. Just,
Yeah.
We appreciate all you're doing. Is there anything I can do for you? Like we tried to make that a theme of when we talk to directors or talk to the branch managers, just, hey, what can we do for you? Because they want to look good at their job. Where do you need volume at? Or what can I tell my sales reps to make you look better? And so we created that alignment right off the bat in Texas.
Wow.
With a lot of the ops side, and they were willing to bust their butts for us. They'd willing to help us out with service or help us out with quicker installs. And I mean, we had ups and downs. We went through different branch managers, different directors, but that theme was always there of trying to show appreciation for Freedom, or how can we help you guys out as well, not just the other way around.
Where did that start from? Was that just because, was that just because like you guys were maybe in that market and your connection to Mitch, or
I mean, where your question is, where did like the gratitude, or?
Well, I like, 'cause you're saying like the company was a little bit divided, but like you guys were still willing to trust them, maybe without like a ton of proof of concept before that. Like, where did that belief come from? Was that me?
Yeah, man. As weird as this sounds, I mean, I feel like that's how you should live your life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, there's no sense. We all have trials in our life, right? I mean, I was talking to you right before doing this. You were telling me about your first summer and going in sales, and that wasn't an easy summer, right? We all have trials. I've gone through different things in my life, but I've always learned that if you can go at it with a positive attitude, with energy, with excitement, like you can do miracles. You can do hard things, right? You can do hard things, and it's so much easier if you have the momentum. Like getting through an obstacle with excitement, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Right? If you have momentum, if you have a team behind you that's excited as well, we can get through a cancel. We can get through, a site surveyor that didn't show up. But that little obstacle it becomes the hardest thing in the world to do if you don't have a team with you, if you're not positive about any situation.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to understand everybody has different things they're going through with life, and so trying to approach it with that attitude, I think, made the difference. But then it became contagious because it was like, hey, this is kind of how we're trying to run our business. But then we looked at it and we were the only group growing, right? Within our sales organization. Yeah. We were promoting, quarterly. We had different people that were becoming regionals, newer reps to the solar industry. We were the only ones growing out of the leaders. And so you had this part of the business that was doing 10%, then 15%, 20%, and then we were doing over 50% of the company's volume by the end. And so it was like, Well, what are we doing different? Nothing. We just love our jobs and we love life. Like that's the only thing that we're doing different. Like we're the guys that try and have, try and be happy, try and show gratitude, and trying to give other people the opportunity to build and grow. You know.
Dude, I think you go to any sales conference and you see these other guys speak, that guys that have done major things, and it really always boils down to like, you get what you give, and you reap what you sow. Like those concepts are law.
Yeah.
And that's just more proof of it. Man, that's inspiring. I think it seems like that if enough people can believe in a concept like that, that's when you do, like I think you said it, like miracles, like things that you would never think possible.
Yeah.
I mean, even looking at, from essentially 0 sales to 6,000 installs and promoting all these regions within 4 years, I haven't never heard of growth like that. And it's always interesting to hear like the root cause is kind of like what we believe in. It's like serve and elevate, abundance, like just the things you hear, but maybe you don't practice. And then when you actually do practice and you get more than one person to believe in it, it's explosive.
Yep.
Explosive growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you approach it like that, and then I feel like if you got to find your satisfaction in the job. Right. And for me, it was obviously a lot of us carry our why with us. Right. But for me, what I ended up seeing was the happiest times of me working, and you said serve and elevate, but the happiest moments of my job was, like that guy mentioned his name, Jeff Roman, was watching him buy his first car, and then watching him buy his first house, and I mean, there's countless reps that have done that. But it's also it's been cool to see those guys mold themselves into leaders. Like for me, that was the biggest happiness out of this job was seeing people make not just their checks, but just make a transformation of their leadership, step up and like get into this place where now they were just a sales rep that was a shy, timid kid. Now you see them, they're training 50 different reps.
Yeah.
And so I think that was one of the reasons why we grew as well. And this is a challenge if you're a leader, you're put in that position to lead, like we said, not just by sales, but you're also put in that position to like serve your people, right? And so for us, we had a stack of an override that we were able to work with, and I was always willing to cut into my stack to give other people the opportunity to build and grow. If there were certain leaders that you were able to see and you saw something in, I'd always give them the opportunity. And sometimes it didn't work out. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I was never upset with that, right? Like, hey, we gave you an opportunity to build and grow a team. I'd rather give somebody an opportunity to try and fail than not give them the opportunity to try it at all. And so sometimes almost to a fault, we let, obviously it wasn't to a fault because we grew a lot more than.
I was going to say, the other side of it.
I mean, we'd always want to be aggressive with giving people the opportunity to lead and grow, and so whether that was shifting guys, recruits to them and giving them opportunity to go fail or whatever it was, but I was never afraid to cut into my stack to give people the opportunity to step up into a different role.
Man, that's so hard to do. I mean, I guess I say it's a common thought process that's hard to do in door to door. It's like, how do I have to give this? Like, and people want to hold on to that so much that it limits the growth, the growth factor. And yeah, man, it seems like with like what you did is a lot of what embodies Solar Pros as a whole. Of like, how do we do that on mass scale? Yeah. That's awesome, man. Talking to your main leaders, who are the alpha boys, are dogs. They're killers, and some of them are just such good dudes. Just so happy to have them here. They, I would say like the main thing that they when they reference you, that they talk about is your ability to, one, like recognize potential leaders, help them believe before maybe they do, and then that development side, which I think maybe stems a lot from how, willing to give them the opportunity on the pay side and then let them fail on the leadership side. Maybe walk us through like your philosophy there. I mean, like maybe you kind of dabbled in it a little bit, but
Yeah, no, I mean, so Solar Pros right now, and this is just I guess how I tick, right? Like, but Solar Pros right now, we're breaking records almost daily right now.
Yeah.
New, we just broke our new weekly record this past week. This will be our biggest month.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, we're going to hit 3,000 accounts. I mean, 3,500 accounts in February. I'm already thinking, how can we get 10,000 accounts?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know what it is, but I'm always thinking that we can hit bigger and we can provide more opportunities by doing that, right? But the crazy thing about Solar Pros is not just the pros, but I mean, Alpha, whether it's Clayton Granch who works with the Impactor, whether it's the Relentless group, you have talents that I don't have. You have a way to reach certain people that I probably can't. Like, people need to hear from you. And so I know you've talked to some of the Alpha guys or whether it's, some of the other leaders that I work with, but like a lot of our success goes back to those guys. Yeah. And yeah, I might be able to go and impact somebody's life or go help them, but man, maybe these other guys have there's like Brandon Wilson does things that I could never do. Yeah. Right? He has a way to connect with people. He has a way to build people up and make them feel better about themselves. Zeke is one of the best leaders. Clayton's one of the best leaders, and there's guys that if I tried to control that all the time and say, no, you need to come to me. You need to. Yeah. I mean, I'm holding back the reps ultimately at that point, because those guys need to grow into different, to become better leaders. But in order for some of those guys that were reps to moving up to whether it was managers or regionals, they needed to have the opportunity to be able to work with other people, but those reps need to connect with them as well because they've learned things from them that I just don't have the talents to be able to teach them. And maybe I have different talents. Maybe I have different, things that I could provide, but we're all different. And that's what makes it as a unit so special. So special here. I feel the same way, like about Josh, about Justin. These guys care about people, but Josh has different talents that I don't have. Justin's unbelievable at different things. And as I'm getting to know you, same thing. I already know you have a connection with your guys, but there's different things that you're able to help your people out with, and you have different talents that I don't. And so you got to let people shine with that.
Let them shine. How do you, because I've heard from Brandon and Tanner and a couple other guys, like, what really helped them grow was having the belief from their leadership maybe before they even saw it.
Yeah.
I guess like maybe tell us like how did you identify, or like how do you know, like, hey man, like this is going to be a guy that we need to build around. I need to give him that opportunity. I need to start preparing him, equipping him with the right skill set so we can expand. Like, what do you look for?
Yeah, man. I mean, as weird as this sounds, the two things that I think that I look for, you just mentioned Tanner, you mentioned Brandon, right? I don't think in probably 4 years, there's probably been a total of 10 days that have gone by that I haven't talked to Brandon, right? Like he's consistent every single day. Tanner's consistent every single day. That guy is up early in the morning at the gym, and you can count, I promise you today, Tanner's knocking doors. I don't even need to check on him. I don't need to go push him to do that. He is consistent with it. Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I look for. Like you have guys that come into this, into the industry, and they might go and crush it on a blitz. But if they check out for the next 2 to 3 weeks, they're hard to get a hold of. Like it's hard to build around those people. Yeah. And you look at it, I mean, whether it's the pros, whether it's any of my, any of the other companies I worked with, whether it's Alex Winters, I guarantee he's one of the most consistent guys. Yeah. He might not be the top rep every single month in sales, but he's consistently up there every month after month, right? And so that's one of the things, is looking at consistency. The second thing that I think that a lot of the leaders that I would look at is, do those people give you energy when you're around them, right? Like, just even meeting you for the first time, you know, or meeting somebody like, dude, you can tell you're a gracious, like happy individual. And so that's who I'd want to build around, right? It's not, do I want to build around the guys that are taking energy away from me? Yeah. Probably not. As weird as that sounds, like we come from an industry, which I think has it backwards. A lot of times we come from an industry that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Like it's like I got to complain, what's in it for me? Where's mine at? Where's my check? What's my, you know, what does this look like? And the common thing that's been around our leaders are they're energetic guys. They're people that are, you know, that love life. They're happy, right? And then they're consistent. And so if you can see those things, they don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
But if I'm excited to answer your phone call, like I'll immediately identify that person and say, hey, we are going places. Like your group, you guys should have a division at some point soon, right? You guys are on your pathway there. And so those leaders that are consistent with you, that are happy, they can mold themselves into becoming regionals. They can mold themselves into being great leaders. But that's all it takes. Somebody that's just happy that people want to be around, right?
It's profound. I mean, it really embodies the simplify to intensify concept of, dude, just keep it simple. Does it give you energy? Are you excited to answer his calls? Like, and is he just doing the work daily? That's somebody you can depend on, and everything else will come.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. That's I think a lot of guys need to hear that. I think we overthink stuff, you know, as leaders. Like, you know, like, how do I develop my guys? How do I develop this closer, this setter? It's like, dude, is he putting in the work? What's his attitude like? Yeah. Plain simple. Yep. You know, and if you just leave it at that, like good things are going to come with time because everything else is in alignment. Yeah. Everything else will come. That's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if they embody that, like, I'm sure it's the same way for you. Like your leaders, they're like my best friends. Yeah. You know, like I love being around them, you know, and it's in those down times, you can get through them if you have people that are energetic, that have your back, right? And so, so those people from day one, like you said, Brandon said it, Tanner said it, Clayton Grant, when I first met with him, I think he was the first regional promoted within our previous company. Like he was quick to be promoted, but it was because he was happy, he wanted it. But same thing with Brandon. Like from day one, I was like, Brandon, you should be running teams. Like, you've never sold solar before. He's trying to figure out how to sell it, but I'm like, man, you should be running teams.
You saw that from day one.
From day one. Like, you're going to be one of our brightest and best regional managers, right? I mean, you could just tell because everybody gravitated around him. People want to be around him, you know? Same thing with, I mean, we mentioned, we can go through them all, but that's typically the common theme. And that's why we thrived at our previous company, because we were happy. We loved our job, right? And you can love your job when you love the people that you're around, right? Like this job can suck.
Oh yeah.
It can be the worst if that's all you're focused on. Yeah, but if you love the people you're around, then there's nothing better, right? I look at this and I'm like, what other job do I get to go to? You know, we get to go compete. We get to go win awards. We get to go and, you know, go to battle with, but then also go and, you know, if you win some of those competitions, go take a trip to Mexico with some of your best buddies, or Hawaii or whatever it is. There's nothing like this, you know, and it's so fun if you love the people that you work with.
Great points. Jeez, I love that. I think that helping guys understand that those little things make all the difference, and that if you just do that through enough time, like, you'll see the growth, you'll see everything. But oftentimes we're just conditioned to want it today, and patience is tough. But it really is very simple, very, very simple concept. Do you, because you had mentioned, like, on at the banquet, some of the trial, like personal trials you've gone through, some of those things. Do you feel like some of those things, like some of the things that, you know, you've had to deal with, maybe like helped you view life the way that you do because of you know, just maybe a more positive perspective? Or what do you feel like you owe that to?
Yeah, man. Of course. Yeah, I mean, everybody has a story, right? everybody has, and I don't think that, what I've gone through is necessarily more difficult than anybody else. It's fun. I mean, you look at other people and everybody has something they're dealing with, right? And it's just our reaction to that. And I learned that at a young age. I mean, my dad is my best friend, right now, and but we didn't always have the best relationship. Things weren't always easy, and my mom has always been the absolute rock of our family. She's always been that person that if I saw her right now, she'd be smiling, and and she's just always been that positive person. But so I learned that, I think, from her, and then that time and time again, life has taught me that lesson. I remember, I mean, this is just going kind of on a tangent, but I was a missionary when I was 19 years old, and one of my favorite companions that I lived with, he had cystic fibrosis. It was a miracle he was on a mission. Like, kid, his lungs were failing him all the time, and every single night he used to have to cough up mucus every night, and I used to pat his lungs and help him do that every single day. And it's funny, his dad actually called me last night that wants to come work at the pros now too.
Oh,
but
really?
So some of those like relationships are still happening, or still, we're still working out. But he, this guy, I just remember, like, he was always one of the most happy guys. And I used to talk to him about that, like, how are you getting through this? And he taught me a lesson that, hey, positivity can get you through a lot. Like, I mean, I think that's a lesson that I've learned, that as weird as it sounds, I don't want to go, like, if we need to go on a spiritual tangent or whatever, but that's the meaning of our life, right? Like, we had the greatest leader that showed us that, right? How many times did Jesus complain about his situation, and so, yeah, I learned that from this kid, that, his operations that he had on his lungs, he had full lung transplants and everything eventually, and the survival rate of those operations were dependent on your positivity, and that carried with me.
Yeah.
Like,
the survival rate of those were dependent on your positivity.
Yeah, the way your outlook was, the way that your energy was in your body, like the way that you approached those different operations. And so I remembered that. Like, I ended up getting cancer later on that we talked about at the banquet. And I remember that same thing. I was like, if I can show up every single day with a smile, and I can show up with whether it was, I used to have to get an IV shot every day for the chemo treatments or whatever it was, but I just remember thinking that if I can be like Jason Egbert, or if I can be that person that just shows up with positivity, the doctors told me the same thing. You're going to make it through. You'll be fine. And obviously I had a type of cancer that had a high survival rate, but even then, like, chemo can kick your butt if you let it, right? Or you can kick its butt, right? And so it's just the positivity, the way you approach it, right? And that's anything. Like, I mean, you're jacked. You went to the gym today. If you approach the gym with, like, hey, I'm gonna go do this, I'm happy to be here, or if you're just going through the motions, this sucks, the results are going to be completely different, right? And so whether it was the ups and downs of starting a company, but yeah, it was the way you approach, like, how do you show up? It's the difference maker.
Wow. Dude, we're going deep, man. This is good stuff. Jeez. I wish there was a more, like, tangible way because I feel like conversations happen like this, and guys are going to listen to this, and I think a lot of guys will have some takeaways, but I just wish that, like, everybody could get to that point where, they view life that way. I feel like you have to earn it in some regards of, like, having the opposition to, or you have to choose. But there's so often, I feel like, in our space, there's so much good advice. There's so, like, stuff like this is all, it's been said, it's been talked about. People have probably heard it, but sometimes it takes you to get to a certain point in your life, or, like, your situation, where all of a sudden it has an impact, and you act, and you actually try and do different, try and change how you view things, or how you act. But I wish there was a way to get everybody just to, like, embody that more. And I think a lot of people do, but because it really is that powerful. I'm just kind of thinking back through my life or situations, and it really comes down to just how you approach the situation. Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah. That's awesome, dude.
No, yeah, and as a leader, I think you can find the good in people, and you can bring that out of people if that's what you're looking for, right? If you're always the leader, it's funny. I was just talking to Josh right before we came in here. If you're the leader that's always coming down on your guys and telling them what they're doing wrong, or the things that are, they need to improve on, or whatever it is, instead of trying to find the good in people and really tell people, hey, this is what you're good at, man. These are your strengths. This is what I like about you. Like people they'll eventually end up becoming what you see in them. I learned that also, and I know we probably need to wrap up here soon, but I learned that in sports. I played basketball growing up, and I remember there was a difference maker in my coaches that would tell me not to shoot the ball. Like back in those old school days, you'd pound the ball into the paint. But I had coaches that were like, don't shoot it. You shoot it, you're coming on the bench. Well, guess what was in my mind every time I'd go to shoot it? Don't shoot. I got this coach back here tell me. But the other coaches, or like if I went and I practiced on my own, where you knew you had the green light, it was just your mindset. You're shooting it into an ocean. You're like, yeah, like, go ahead, man. You're our player. You're our guy. Go ahead and shoot it. And that was like, you could see the difference, in the way you performed. And so just from that, I always said that that's how I wanted to raise my kids, or that's how I hopefully, work with some of the people that I work with. See the good, see what they can become, instead of looking at them what they are right now. If you look at your reps, what they are right now, the things that they're not doing as well as you'd like them to, the things that they need to, that's how you're always looking at them. It's hard for them to become something different. Lead them as to what you think they can become. Focus on the good, focus on their talents. And that's why if it's a conversation with Tanner, if it's a conversation with Zeke, Clayton, or whatever, like, hey, dude, this is what you're super good at. This is what I see in you. You can do it. Go do it, man. There's nobody better than you. And be genuine. I'm not saying that to those guys. There really isn't anybody better than the leaders at the pros. Sure. But if you lead like that with your people, they'll eventually become, just like if you have a positive attitude when you're going to shoot a shot and you think you're going to make it, you'll probably make it. But if you're second guessing shooting because you're worried about missing and, hey, maybe I have this wrong, I'm not doing this right, you're not going to do it right.
T-Money, we're going deep, dog. This is great stuff, dude. I think that guys just need to hear that from their leadership. Like, shoot or shoot, man. Like, let it rip. Let's give it a shot. Dude.
You're the guy. You're the best at it, dude.
Yeah.
And that's true. There's nobody that's doing it bigger than what we're doing. Like, it's the talent, like what you're doing. Like, I'm sincere about it. I know I haven't met you too much, but you should be running. I mean, you said it this year. You have a goal of having 3 more regionals, right? Break off. Yeah. Dude, you're the guy to do that. Like, it's you guys are proving it with your numbers, and you guys will do that. But identifying your leaders and telling them that they can do it as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the key steps with it.
Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. I think that this stuff's gold for guys. I really hope we can apply some of the simplicity there of what we talked about. But our president, our guy, Tyler Jackson, thanks for coming on, dude. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
Cool.